coffee.
And if anyone missed last session, we have the notes that will continue for this session. But I'll just start with saying that I am, as always, super, super, super honored and pleased to work again with Rhonda Wheatley, who is, as I think many of you know, you're her groupies. And she's an accomplished artist, healer, writer, teacher, extraordinaire, wonderful, lovely human being, as you can all see in the way she runs these sessions. And Rhonda has worked with 6018 repeatedly on healing. We always need healing, and these times are just pointing that out even more. And anytime we can work with Rhonda, we are more than pleased, and unfortunately it has to be under these circumstances. But it is wonderful to have Rhonda lead us into the wonders and powers of words, because that's what is one of the tools that she is master mistress at. And during these challenging times, she leads us and leads you, hopefully, through a transformational journey with words. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you as always, Rhonda. I am so glad personally that you are in my personal life, as well as running so much, bringing so much joy and knowledge and love to 6018 and all the people who pass through our doors and now our windows in Zoom space. So thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Tricia. And I'm so glad that there's so many familiar faces here. I am going to do a quick review for anyone who might not have heard last week's session, but I also want to say that I have just been reflecting on my connection with you, Tricia. And there are when I do manifesting workshops, do you all know how many times Tricia comes up as little stories I can tell? And when I started doing the workshops with 6018 North, the coolest thing, because a lot of the magical things that have happened to me in my life and as an artist, people wouldn't believe the stories when I tell them. It's hard to believe the stuff I say. So I'm like, hey, Tricia's right here. Will you attest that this happened? And Tricia's there to be my witness, to tell you, yes, this stuff is true. So every now and then, a manifesting story or a successful story where I've magnetized something will involve Tricia. I've got so many stories. And I think I just knew somehow, well before Tricia was doing 6018 North, well before I was doing paintings, and it was well before I knew that I was going to be doing work about healing and transformation, I knew I was supposed to know Tricia. And we met back in 2005, but I knew I was supposed to meet Tricia, and there was a magical way that I was able to get in front of her. And then lo and behold, it was more than 10 years later when we started working together. So there's a lot of magic here, and it's just amazing to me that I end up getting to do a lot of this work with you. So thank you for always bringing me on board. We have done some great work, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm very grateful for you to continue doing this work, doing these sanctuary events. And for anybody who may not know me, I just want to say hi and thank you so much for being here. And those of you who are my friends and who I know, and some of you I haven't seen in a while, it's so good to see your names. I would love to see your faces, but you know what? I know some of us are in pajamas. I would love to be in my pajamas too, but just, be comfortable as you are. I'm just happy you're here, and I'm really grateful for this online format, because there are people here who don't live in Chicago, who don't have the accessibility to come to the in-person spaces. So this is a great thing. Even though we feel limited for some people, this is an expansion of access. So I just want to be grateful, put some gratitude out there. Gratitude is super important to manifesting, so I want to show gratitude. Hey, Alejandra. I just also want to say that when it comes to speaking, I'm going to need to take some breaks just to sip my tea. And when I do that, hopefully, if I ask a question, that sipping tea moment will give you the chance to go ahead and unmute if you want to say something. In these environments, it can be really difficult for people to get up the nerve to, it takes a lot more effort to push that button to unmute yourself to talk than when we're in real in-person environments. And in those in-person environments, I can also see, I can feel people's energy a lot more readily. But those of you who are on camera, if you're shaking your head, that's really helping me. If you're like vibing with me, that gives me that in-person feel. So thanks again for everybody for being here. And again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm an artist, and I've had a practice making 2D works for I don't know how many years because I can't count, but around 2015, 14, 15, I started making sculpture, and I started to feel like I wanted to more directly, overtly, and authentically bring all of who I am or more of who I am into the work I was doing. So I said, you know, I gotta just come out and make this work about metaphysical stuff, the science fiction, the healing, the transformation, the metaphysical, the magic, all the stuff I love. I have to put that directly in the work. And I started making these power object sculptures, but then it wasn't enough to just put a sculpture on a pedestal and go and just let it sit there. I had to get in front of people directly, because being an artist, if there were no connections with people, I don't know if I'd still be an artist. That's the most important part to me. And this was one of the best ways to connect. We're not just saying, hey, how's the weather? We're really doing real work. And I love to have my interactions with people end up elevating us both. So that's why I do what I do. I'm very passionate about this, and this is my purpose. And every opportunity where I'm doing this work, I manifested this. So this is so meta. Anyway, I want to just give a brief overview of some of the things we talked about last week. So we did a workshop that was more focused on journaling, but now I want to talk about manifesting in the context of journaling. So for anyone who is interested in developing a habit of journaling and you haven't gotten yourself there yet, I would say, hey, don't make it a chore. That's one of the issues that people have. They make it like this thing that they have to do rather than something that they get to do. It's something you have to push yourself to do rather than something you feel pulled to do and you can't wait to do. How do you make it something you're pulled to do, excited to do? Number one, don't be too hard on yourself when it comes. Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah, there wasn't one. I'm responding to Sarah in the chat. There was not a workshop last week. I keep saying last week, I mean 2 weeks ago, and you were there. And plus, Sarah, you know everything already. So don't worry, you can't miss anything. So yes, how do you make yourself feel excited about journaling? Well, one thing you could do is don't set difficult, challenging goals. Like if you never journal, don't say, well, I'm going to journal every day for 3 hours a day. Start off with something that's very easy to exceed. Like, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes 1 day a week. And you'll probably go ahead and journal at least 20 minutes that one day if you can get yourself to the page or the screen, whatever method you use for journaling. And so then you'll feel better about yourself because, wow, I did 20 minutes instead of 10, or I did a whole hour instead of just 10. You can exceed your goal. And maybe when you finish that day, you said, you know, I like the rhythm of it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. So you did 2 days instead of 1 day. So it's easy to exceed the goal. The other thing is set up a space that's inviting. So if you have a little table, if you have a little ritual, like I burned a little sage before I got started here, if you have crystals, if you want to do an oil diffuser and just create the ambiance and maybe do a little meditating or yoga right beforehand just to get yourself ready. And do things that you do feel excited about. Do things that do draw you in. And that'll help you put journaling in the context of the stuff you love. Put the stuff you love around journaling, and journaling can become one of those things that you love. And then the other basics of journaling are keep it private. Some people blog online and put their personal business out there. And if you're writing something that you would like to one day show someone else, I would say that unless you're 100% exhibitionist, you probably are writing it for another audience. But when you journal, you want yourself to be the only audience. Journaling is for many different things. It's to document your life. It's to say, hey, my life matters enough for me to write down everything that happens. And it could be as simple as charting things like how you feel every day if you're dealing with, no matter what you're dealing with. But sometimes if I'm having stomach aches, I might want to know, when did I first have a stomach ache? And I look back in my journals and see. And it could just be keeping track of conversations with people and just the everyday things. And I do use my journals to go back and use it as a receipt checker or just a memory checker. I can go back 10, 20 years in journals and look for things, and my memory isn't as good as my journals. So it's a memory keeper. And that's the basic thing that most people think of when they think of journaling. But there's so many other things you can do there. And I'm going to talk about all the ways you can, not all, but a lot of the ways. Maybe you all have some more ideas for using journaling to create your overall manifesting practice. But privacy is important because if you're writing for someone else, you might not be getting the full benefit. You might be censoring because there are things that, like I said, unless you're 100% exhibitionist, you probably want to talk about things with yourself. So in addition to documenting your life, there's building this relationship with yourself. It's your self-care, it's your self-love, and it's a tool for wellness. It's a place to go if you want to vent your anger, if you want to process experiences, if you want to remember things, and plan goals, brainstorm, etc. I want to just take a moment to sip my tea and see if anyone has a question about the last session, which was 2 weeks ago. Does anyone have a question or a comment?
I have a question for Amanda.
Hi, Erin.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I love hearing about people's rituals. So like when you said, if you could just talk a little bit more about how you set the space. Rebecca Solnit has a great essay about writing a candle to the muse. So I love to hear about how people like prepare themselves in the space. Thank you.
Yeah, does anybody want to take that? Does anybody have a ritual that they have before they journal? Okay, I'm going to say, oh, somebody's. Hey, Gina.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Typically, I guess you might want to say ground yourself or center yourself. I find myself a nice quiet spot, typically my bedroom, and turn the lights down just enough where I can see what I'm journaling. But I try to get my headspace focused on what I'm actually journaling about. It could be any emotion that I'm going through. It could be anger, could be disappointment, could be joy. But I like to just center myself. Sometimes I'll have a cup of tea, sometimes just nice cold ice water. But that's typically what I do. It's like my wind down moment, if you will.
Yeah, thank you for that, Gina. And I meant to say that one of the reasons, like once you get the habit, you don't necessarily need the ritual. That was my suggestion for people who need help creating the habit, because I started journaling when I was maybe in 4th or 5th grade. And so I don't need anything but something to write on. And if I'm traveling, if I don't even have access to a journal, I'll grab whatever is there, because the habit is so strong in me. It's my go-to thing to process. When I'm excited and happy about something, I run to the journal and write it down. I want to capture those moments. If I'm upset or angry, I want to get it out, and it's about moving the energy. Gina mentioned something about if she's angry. If I'm angry, I want to go to the journal before I talk to a person, because I can, you know how you can feel it in your body, the tension and the toxic energy if you have it. When I start journaling, I can feel it leaving. Sometimes it's even leaving through my fingers. It's leaving through the words. I'm getting out of my system. And I call that moving energy. It's one way of doing it. And grounding your energy, Gina also mentioned that. That can be important. And sometimes just the act of writing itself is grounding, because you're moving something out, you're releasing some kind of tension. And then there are other movements that you can do with, like you might shake out your energy, dance, exercise. There are all kind of ways. Some people go running and it really helps clear their thoughts. But if I'm on 10, journaling will bring me down some levels, and then I can start processing. And I always like to process things before I talk to someone, because when I get out of that angry state, and I don't get angry that much. It's hard to make me very angry. But if I do get there, I need to write it out. And that's not why I named the workshop Write It Out, because we're writing stuff out of our system. So,
well, can I add that, Rhonda?
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's that, well, you've known me quite some time, a few decades, couple, somewhere along the way. But as you know, I like to write, but I just don't take the time to write. So that's why for me, I know you've been doing it for years, but for me, because although I want to write it down, I'm so busy, so I had to force myself. So for me, you know, taking care of my daughter, I work so hard, running here and there, I have to wind down and ground myself in the evening. And still, I'm sometimes forcing myself. I find myself that now that I write it out, but my journaling is so sporadic. Like I have 30 journal books, and I'll probably have more written on scattered paper than in my actual book. So I'm trying to get into the habit of course, of um, be more organized, I guess, if you will, with my journaling and my thoughts. I call myself a scatterbrain, as you know. I've said this over the years. So I'm trying to get to a point where I'm focusing on me and my needs, even when it comes to my journaling needs and my thoughts. So I'm not as organized as you are. I'll get there one day.
You know, I
So,
would say I'm organized. It's just a habit. You know,
mhm,
everybody has different habits. And the reason that I came up with well, first of all, I don't think people should pressure themselves into journaling. And if someone never journals, then I say, okay, maybe set yourself up with a once a week thing. But once it feels like a habit and you're comfortable and you don't have to force yourself, I say journal when you need to. It's not something that is a chore like that has to be done regularly, like cleaning, washing dishes or something. You do it when you
okay.
need to. And but if you need to develop the habit, these are some ways to do it by giving yourself a set time. Because I started as a kid, this is something I didn't even start thinking about until I got to workshops and people kept asking me, how do I develop the habit? I couldn't go to my experience and say that, so I had to really think, well, how would I develop the habit if I didn't already do it? So yeah, but this is your self-care, and the last thing you want to do is be uncompassionate with yourself about doing something for yourself. So show yourself compassion as you develop the goal or develop the habit, which is why I said set a goal of 10 minutes one day a week. And that's so easy to do, and it's so easy to exceed that. You might find easily going into 20 minutes and then setting up the ambiance. And to Aaron's question about some other ritual things you might do, meditating beforehand, putting on relaxing, calming music. There are so many cool meditation videos on YouTube. There are binaural beats where you have the brain entrainment that brings your brain into sync with different wavelengths like alpha or theta or beta. You know, you can get into these relaxation modes and you can calm yourself. And then it helps you get into a reflective state. Um, there are You might even turn on your favorite upbeat music. You don't have to be like Buddha when you meditate. You can turn on some rock music, you turn on classical, you can turn on hip hop, whatever it is, because for some of us it's an adrenaline, it's a fast moving, you might have a lot of words, you might be excited, you might be angry, whatever you need to, whatever mood you want. So it's not about getting into some spiritual space. It doesn't have to be like that. It could just be, whatever you like. If you want to set up figurines around your table, whatever makes you happy and whatever space makes you feel like, oh, I can't wait to go there. If you want to put your favorite food, like tie in things that make you feel good. If I wake up in a bad mood, I think, oh yeah, there's green tea and I have some. I immediately feel better when I think about the green tea that I'm going to have in a few minutes. And it literally perks me up. And I know some people feel that way about their coffee. So yes, there's that. And anyone who wants to talk a little bit more, I mean, I'm going to give my contact information. So if there's anything I don't dive into enough, I'll put my contact information up on the screen before we end. And before we get too far, I want to talk about law of attraction basics. So when we talk about manifesting, we're talking about creating things that we want or attracting things that we want to bring into our lives. It could be, some people get a little bit caught up in attracting money and cars and material things, and that's fine. I'm not here to criticize that, but when I do these workshops, I tend to be more focused on attracting opportunities and different types of communities and relationships that we want to get into. I talk a little bit more about our sense of purpose and goals and things like that. But attracting a car or a good deal on something, you can also use it for that. But I tend to focus on the opportunities and things like that. So the basics are, just as an overview, Scientific evidence has shown that we are made up of electrical fields, electromagnetic fields, and the heart and the brain are our two strongest electromagnetic fields. And what that means is our thoughts are doing things when they go out. Our feelings are doing things when they go out. How many of you think about a friend and they call you very shortly after? That's been happening to me a lot. My telepathy skills are way up. I thought about somebody the other day. I talked about someone the other day who never calls me without scheduling a time, and they just called me the next day. It's happening several times a week. That is because our thoughts actually travel. They have substance. And for anyone who has problems believing that, people tend to easily believe when people say dogs can smell fear, or don't have any fear around a dog because they can smell fear. Well, it's a similar thing. The energy that we put out, there is something in it that reverberates, and other people can feel it. And it is like a magic because the science out there hasn't explained it yet. But the heart is a bigger electromagnetic field than the brain, which means that the emotions are also attracting. And some people use the law of attraction in a very negative way. And I coined a term, spiritual bullying, meaning that there are people when something bad happens, and there are folks who would say to them, oh, on some level you wanted that to happen, or you created that. And I just want to clarify that I don't think it's fair to go to someone else and tell them what they created, because this universe is so complex and complicated. We don't know what is going on. We don't know where someone's experiences are coming from. Someone could be their soul might need an experience for a certain reason, and it might not be that they consciously attracted something. So I just want to say that there are a lot of people who will speak negatively about the law of attraction because other people misuse it in a way to bully people or shame people when they have certain experiences. And I'm not here to say, oh, if a person got in a car accident, they attracted that. I'm not here to say that, because I don't know what else is going on in their whole soul experience. We're vast beings. There can be all kinds of reasons for things. So I'm going to stick to the positive things we want to bring in our life as the topic. So if the heart is more magnetic than the brain, thinking about things is going to help attract them, magnetize them. But the heart is even stronger. So that means whatever we envision, we want to put feeling behind it. And anybody who's studied or read about the law of attraction, we see tons of stuff about vision boards and doing vision work and envisioning what you want. However, a lot of people, I see fewer people emphasizing the emotional side. But we can do that. We can do that sitting in meditation. We can envision what we want, think about it, and we can feel it and get into the energy. But journaling helps us take a little bit a further step. And I'll get more into that. But I want to talk about some of the first steps. Oh, does anybody have a question about the mechanics of the law of attraction? Because that was a very quick overview, because this is a short session. I do a whole workshop on manifesting, but does anybody have a question? Not that I 100% know all the answers, but anyone? I'm going to go a little further. Does someone unmute? Okay, I'll keep going. So one of the first ways that you can use your journal to start the manifesting process is, one, exploring what you want and what you don't want. What do you want to create? So get in your journal, because there are some people who just create willy-nilly, who just manifest willy-nilly. But getting in your journal and just really exploring it and gaining clarity around it is one step you can use your journal for. And a lot of people think they want something, and when they manifest it, when it shows up, they're like, wait a minute, I don't really want that. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times journaling can help you get clear on what you do and don't want. And then the next step beyond that is your why, getting clarity on the why. And I think knowing your why is important, because it helps you align better with what you want to create, what you want to attract. And it also helps you connect what you want to do to your purpose and make sure it's in alignment with who you are and what you really, really want at your core. And I'll give you an example. Have we all heard of people who want to be famous just to be famous? Or they want to be a millionaire just to be a millionaire, and they don't really have a passion or a reason or something they want to do? I've heard so many people say, I just want to create something and get it out there. That's a desire for attention. that's a desire of someone just wanting to be famous for the sake of being famous because it looks cool. That, but like you've seen, maybe there are people who might want to be famous for singing, but they haven't really cultivated that talent. They don't have the passion for the talent, they have the passion for the attention. So if that person were to dive into their why, they would discover, oh, I just need attention, or maybe there's, something, or maybe they'll find out what it is they really want to do, and maybe it's not singing, and maybe they'll start to de-emphasize the need for attention and find that they resonate more with the real thing they're passionate about. So, and as an artist, when I get connected with my why, it also helps me figure out which opportunities I want to go for and which ones I don't. So when I have my why, and say my why is, I really want to help people. I want to do things that end up helping people. And I want to talk about healing, transformation. I want to talk about things that people can apply to their lives right now, today. And I want it to be connected to my art, blah, blah, blah. And if someone comes to me and says, hey, Rhonda, could you do this TED Talk? We want you to come in and learn how to do the talk the way we like to do them, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm over here also doing these workshops, and I have to choose things carefully. I have to choose how I spend my time. So I said no. This is something someone actually did ask me to do a TED Talk, and I said no to it because the rules and the thing they wanted me to talk about, it didn't align with what I'm already doing, and it would have taken time from that. I know why I'm doing this, and that didn't line up with it. Maybe if I had a lot more time, I would have done it, but keeping track. So most people have a lot of goals on their list. They might have what I call goal clutter, and they might have a desire to do everything. But sometimes choosing which goal to focus on, a simple question of why do I want to do it, and being more clear on your why can help you put things on the back burner or take things all the way off the list and clear some goal clutter. Does that make sense? Or does anybody want to add something or ask anything there? Trisha?
Yukio, how do you find your why?
How do you find your why? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it in the chat. The chat doesn't, sorry about that, Yukio. How do you find your why?
Yeah.
I think just by journaling and going within and asking yourself questions. So I might be able to come up with some journaling prompts that can get to that, but maybe you go back and look at your past and you explore, what are the things I love? What are the things that I find most fulfilling? What are the things I find most meaningful? And out of that, you get a core sense of what you're about and what your purpose is. So a lot of people don't have a sense of purpose, so they might need, or they don't know what their purpose is, but they've been living it. So if by doing some exploratory journaling around what have I accomplished, what accomplishments do I love, what do I desire to do, and if you just look at what your desires are, hey Janet, and you look at, well, why do I love doing those things? It's asking yourself, it's a kind and compassionate self-interrogation, and just looking at, well, why do I like to do that? What is it that I get out of it? So if you ask yourself, the things I love, what is it that I get out of those things? And that becomes a why. Is that making sense, or is there some other nuance I can go into?
Oh no, that's good. It's, I think it's a lot of times your why, you can learn that your whys are connected to other people's expectation for you or approval. And so then it's like, man, what is my why? My why is always someone else's, what I wanted from them, love or whatever. And so you just kind of lost because you've had all these other things.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. That is one of the major reasons why I talk about people getting clear on what they want. Thank you so much for saying that, because a lot of people, it's in addition to the people who just want to be famous for the sake of being famous, a lot of people make their career choices and avoid other career choices because of what their parents want, or because they want status, or because what they think will look cool and how they want to look in the world rather than who they want to be. And coming from, a lot of people are not coming from the heart, they're coming from how they want to be seen, how they want to be received, and how they want to look. And so thank you, you hit the nail on the head there. So a lot of us aren't even aware that we're striving for somebody else's dream, and it's not our own. So that's another reason to get that clarity, because that's where the discovery happens. Oh, wow, I only want to be a lawyer because my parents value that. And some people end up being middle-aged and discovering that. And that's not, I mean, and I don't want to say that's a bad thing, because sometimes that career path that they took is going to be a great foundation for the thing they find they really want to do, and they build on it. So things end up having a purpose. There's some things that I ended up doing on a job that I absolutely abhorred and hated. And and I knew in the back of my mind, one day this is probably going to be valuable to me. And it was, I was working at a graphic design firm, and I didn't know how to use PowerPoint. And they forced me to use it, and I had to teach it to myself while I was creating a presentation for a client meeting. And guess what I use all the time for the last 20 years? PowerPoint. I use it all. I use it. People think I'm using Photoshop. I've learned all kinds. I mean, so I was right. I was frustrated. I was fighting the whole way, but in the back of my mind, I knew this level of frustration probably means this is important for me. And later on, lo and behold, I'm still using PowerPoint. In fact, when I screen share the thing, it's not like some gorgeous piece of graphic design, but you know, when I screen share my contact information, that'll be a PowerPoint screen. If anybody saw some of the graphics that I put up, you know, those are little basic PowerPoint things. And some people think I'm using graphic design software. But anyway, yeah, it's amazing how some of these things work. But so that's the point to say, just because we were on a different path that wasn't our own, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some value. And you might end up being, again, middle-aged and just discovering, oh, this is what I really want to do. But I don't think we should feel bad about taking so long to get there, because it takes the time that it takes. And we can't judge, oh, that person's 22 and they know what they want to do. What's wrong with me? I'm 40 whatever, and I still haven't figured it out. Everybody's on a different timetable. So the key there, don't follow what other people value, what other people think you should do. Don't look to please the status-seeking crowd. And the other thing is, everybody's on a different timetable, and never compare yourself to another person, because it just it's like a huge self-diss when you compare yourself to somebody else. Everybody's on a different path, and that's something that can that can create blocks and friction when we're trying to attract something and bring it in. Thinking about what other people have and in having envy or jealousy, this person did it then. Sometimes the world is aligning in a way that when you get to the point where you're ready to do something, whatever you're doing, there might be a trend that's developing and it hits right when you're ready. So we have to trust that there's a larger picture to it, and there's a time for us. And some people, of course, might, you know, come to the end of their lives and never do that thing, or never realizing that all along they've been serving a wonderful purpose, because they were thinking about status. They were thinking about what other people value, thinking, oh, I never pleased my mother or my father. But then all along they were doing something purposeful and meaningful, but they couldn't find it because they were looking from someone else's perspective. And journaling can help us get clear on that. And especially if we do the style of journaling that I call free writing, or that someone might call stream of consciousness writing, because when you get there, it's more than just your wakeful conscious mind thinking. Your subconscious starts to rise up, your higher self comes down and comes out. And what I mean by free writing is you write without paying attention to the grammar. You write without stopping yourself to think about the punctuation and, oh, so I need a new paragraph here. Is that the best word? Basically, it's a tug of war between the left and right brain when you edit and write at the same time, or when you do the technical stuff and the idea generation at the same time. A lot of times when you're setting goals or doing this introspective, self-reflective writing, there are floodgates that want to open and come through. And those parts of you that know, oh, I'm just going after what my parents and grandparents want, or this is just me seeking status and approval from outside myself rather than me really getting in touch with what my heart wants. Sometimes those realizations come to the surface through writing, especially the kind of writing where you just get in the zone, write like a cave person, use the simplest words, don't stop to worry, is it a semicolon or a comma? Because you're not trying to be Mark Twain or Toni Morrison in these moments. It doesn't matter how good it sounds. It doesn't matter if it's the right word. You are just getting the information out, getting in the flow. And it's like the difference between a fire hydrant that's dripping and a fire hydrant that they completely open up. So we get to these breakthroughs. In my workshops in person, we often have these 10-minute periods where we just write about whatever the topic is, and we use that technique. And I have to say, I can't remember a workshop where someone, at least one person or the whole group, can raise their hand and say, I had a breakthrough during this writing exercise. So in just 10 minutes, you can have a breakthrough. And since a lot of us rarely sit down and write, and there's a difference between writing on the computer and writing by hand, the energy is different. And you might notice if you get on the computer and try both ways, right back to back, a lot of people don't even do it. They never write about their goals or write about their why and what's in their heart. So once they do, they realize that a lot of realizations come to the surface. And I have to say, as an artist, I don't even sketch, I don't draw to plan artwork. I write, I journal, and I describe the work that I want to create. And maybe that's because I have a writing background. It's just me. Everyone is different. And I might have a little small sketch, but most of my planning work around art projects, even when I was doing paintings, most of my ideas came in the form of the written word, and things came to life in my brain and I would describe them. So, because if I sketch something, I'm not going to know what that is. Like, I'm not going to know that, oh, I want to mix these two colors and get this shade of blue. So I describe things. And with free writing, and often the handwriting might be difficult to read, or if I'm on the computer, I'll do it. And if I think I'm having a block sometimes and I just start writing, I get through that block and I end up with a full, ready to execute idea after a couple of sessions in my journal. So, so yeah, that's the basic, getting clarity on your why, knowing what is true to you versus sticking to outside things. And that helps you to align with what you want to manifest. Then there's setting the actual goals. And then, do they measure up to the why? And next, I want to talk about a couple of different types of ways you can use the journal when it comes to manifesting. So people who don't have a lot of experience, or who think they don't have a lot of experience manifesting, I think it could be useful to try manifesting little things and then keeping a journal to track them. There's one thing about people, a lot of us don't have photographic memories, or most people who I know don't remember every single little thing that happens. And when we do that, we doubt ourselves because we don't remember all the brilliant things we've done. So everybody here has manifested things, I'm pretty sure, but we might have forgotten. So you could go back and look at your past and say, what are some of the things that have seemed to magically appear in my life? Make a list of those. And what you do is you strengthen your belief muscles. And the more you believe something is possible and real, the easier it is to flow into it. So the other thing you could do is, when you're practicing manifesting little things, write the date and write what you want to manifest and write the results, and keep track of that, document that. So when you go back and you think, wow, I'm terrible at manifesting, you have evidence to the contrary that you've written down. So once, many years ago, I was practicing manifesting, and I decided just to manifest the first thing that popped in my head. That first thing was a pickle. And I was staying at a hotel, and I went to the restaurant that night and I ordered this vegan burger, and there was a pickle on the side. And in my experience, I don't get pickles that often with my food anymore. And I didn't see it on the menu, but I was like, okay, it was a matter of hours ago that I said, I'm going to manifest a pickle. First thing that popped in my head. And there it was on the plate. So that's just that's an example of a little thing. It's also key because I don't have any emotional attachment to whether or not I see a pickle. And it could be, I could manifest seeing a pickle on a billboard or just randomly seeing them. So it didn't have to be a real live pickle sitting on my plate, but it was. But when you practice manifesting, it might be a good idea to try some things that you don't have an emotional connection to, because what happens is we have more blocks to things if we have a lot of inner criticism or self-doubt or lack of self-worth around something, which I'll get to a little bit more later. The next thing, we can expand our concept of what a journal even is. We can use pictures, we can use art, we can create a vision book. So you hear people talk about vision boards. I've created vision books, and I just have, magazine cutouts and collage elements, and I might cut out a picture of myself because the subconscious is looking, and guess what? The subconscious believes it's gullible, it believes whatever you feed it. And if it believes something already happened, it kind of conspires to make that real. For instance, this isn't about the vision book, but I just want to give an example of how the subconscious works and how and one of the tricks you can use for manifesting. One time I was working on a project as a freelance writer, and I was supposed to write a tagline for the Kentucky Western Wetlands as an advertising tagline, little quick statement. Have I ever been to the Kentucky Western Wetlands? Absolutely not. Did I know what it felt like to be there? Nope. I got online, I did a little bit of reading, and it's like, wow, I feel so honored that they're giving me this assignment, but I was a little intimidated because I'm like, what is this place? I had been doing a lot of writing about Kentucky, but never been to the Western Wetlands. So I started writing some taglines and they sucked. They were bad. And I'm like, okay, how can I turn this around? So what I did was I had a friend my contact person who was the marketer who worked with the client who hired me. What I did was I went into the future and I decided to imagine receiving an email from her saying, wow, Rhonda, these taglines are excellent. They're so good. In fact, they're so good that the client can't decide which one they want. That's what I wrote. I imagined, I didn't write it out, but I imagined receiving this email. So sometimes when you're trying to manifest, you might think, well, what do I envision? How do you envision writing good taglines? It's really hard to do that because I don't know what the taglines are because I haven't seen them yet. So I go into the future after the taglines have been written. I don't even have to see them, and I see the results. I see the outcome and the reaction, and I see someone else's emotion, and then I feel good because, she said my taglines were excellent. Now, this particular person never uses the word excellent when she's talking about my work or what I do, but I will tell you, and she sometimes comes to my workshops too, and I have been able to say, can you attest to this being factual? She's not here today, but she wrote an email and she said that she used the word excellent. She said the taglines were excellent. And she also said that the client couldn't decide between two of them. That's never happened in our working relationship, but the client, but then the part that I didn't manifest was that she said, well, now she was happy and being silly, joking, but she said, now you created extra work for my agency because we have to create 2 logos and they're going to choose the tagline based on the logo. So, but two elements of what I envisioned came true. So basically I convinced my subconscious that I had already received that message. The subconscious will just believe what it sees, believe what it thinks. So if I convince my inner self that I skip over the part where I try to be unintimidated. I skip over the part where I see myself writing brilliant taglines and I just see the end result. My subconscious believed it. And the caliber of the taglines I started writing after I envisioned getting that email, they upgraded. I knew the taglines were better. I knew that the ideas had elevated. So, and obviously the client agreed. So that's an example of how you can envision something and then without using any visual stuff. I just saw it in my brain and I thought it and I felt what it feels like to get that email. So I'm putting my feelings into it. I'm envisioning the actual email message. So if you use a vision book, you can create pictures of things. So you can, if you want to travel to certain places, you can have visuals from the place you want to go, and you might want to cut out a picture of yourself and put it next to it. You can even make a future travel journal and just write down what it felt like to be in those places rather than writing from the present tense of where you want to go. You can write about where you went. I did that once where I had a image of the Tower Bridge of London and I cut out a picture of myself and put it next to it. And then it was maybe a year later. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I ended up there going to art fairs, and I was in museums and inside expo centers most of the time there. So I didn't take pictures in front of monuments. I wasn't doing sightseeing, but the one place where I did have a picture of myself taken, it was where? Guess where? Tower Bridge of London. The thing that makes me believe in every single time something like this happens, it strengthens my belief, which is why you want to practice manifesting small things. It was not my idea. I didn't say, oh, I have a vision book at home and there's a picture of me in front of the Tower Bridge, so I'm going to take a picture. No, it didn't happen like that. My friend said, hey, there's the Tower Bridge. Why don't I take a picture of you in front of it? I wasn't the one who decided that. So yet more evidence that there's something else at work there when we put a visual. Plus, I had completely forgotten about that page in the vision book. probably forgot that I made the vision book, but when I came home later, I picked up the book, looked at it, and I marveled at the fact that the only monument in London I had my picture taken in front of, I put it in this book more than a year earlier. So a vision book is an expansion on a journal. And it could be, you could do it digitally. It doesn't have to be a physical book. You can use a PowerPoint file. You can use a 3-ring binder. You can write it, you know, a sketchbook, any kind of thing. And the other things you can do in your journal, like I've already talked about, is you can brainstorm. You can create action plans for what you'd like to bring into your life, what you'd like to create. And sometimes, if say you're creating an artistic project, you might want to attract the opportunity to deliver it, or to perform it, or to exhibit it, or the publisher to publish it, or you might develop a skill and then attract the employer to hire you to do the work. And what happens inevitably with a lot of us when we're trying to get to our next level is that when we start goal setting and planning and envisioning, a little inner critic voice will come up. And if most of us have it. I mean, I've never had a workshop except for one with a teenager who was a little self-unaware. She's the only person who ever raised her hand and said, I don't have any self-doubt ever. But everybody else I've ever worked with in workshops deals with the inner critic. Some of the most accomplished and people who look like they have it all together, they deal with imposter syndrome, because everybody has the next level. Most of us are always trying to get to somewhere else, no matter how high up we may seem to be. And the inner critic, the little doubt voice, can come up. I don't know if there are very many people who have this 100% perfect, confident, thing, especially if we're always trying to rise up. And I think it's healthy. However, some inner criticisms and self-doubt can be a little bit crippling, and it can keep a person from making moves. It can cause a person to sabotage their own efforts. It can cause a person to not even see opportunities that are right in front of them, opportunities that they are ready for. We will become, we'll blind ourselves. I know we're supposed to not use ableist language, so I'm trying not to use that, but the thing will be in front of us and we will literally not see it. Then there are times when a person sees the opportunity and they have the credentials, they're ready, they have the experience, but they will say no because they're so afraid. They think they don't have the readiness. And for a lot of jobs and opportunities, people want to hire the person who still needs to grow into the job, because if you hire someone who's perfect at it, often that person ends up being overqualified. That's how we learn and grow, by doing things that we're not an expert at. Then there's the other level where when we have a level of insecurity, people can read it in our energy. So there might be two people competing for a position, and they sit in their interview, and one person has all the confidence in the world, but they've got less credentials, less experience, fewer credentials. And then the other person comes in and they're perfect for the job, but their self-doubt seeps through the language they use. It may be in their energy, and other people can pick up on it. And that interviewer may say, I'd like that person's resume, but there was something about them. They may not be able to articulate it, but they could feel it on some level. So those are some of the things that happen when we're carrying around this inner critic and just letting them have free reign in our thoughts. So the first step is to be the observer in our own minds and to not just let it run free. So while we're setting goals, while we're thinking bigger, thinking about our next level, it's a good idea to take a separate page to note what is the inner critic saying, if you hear it. And I'm not saying it's always going to pop up, but if and when it does, note those things. Note the places where you might say, I can't, and or I don't deserve, or I'm not worthy. And the ways to confront those things, and you can of course use your journals to do that, would be to take action where you can. For instance, some people may say, well, I don't have the credentials, or I don't have the education. Well, you can get that, or you can find out, well, do I really need the education, or do I just think I do? Do I need a degree to do this, or can I just read some books and just learn and then feel more confident? Whatever action you can take to remedy whatever that voice is saying. And a lot of times that inner critic is ridiculous and it doesn't even have a point. So we need to just not let it have free reign, but interrogate it. And one of the best arguments against the inner critic is all the times in your past when it was wrong. Everybody here has achieved multiple things, many things, at least 2 things that are noteworthy. And if you do a little bit of journaling, going back through your past, whether you need to pull out your resume or some grants you've written, and just look at your accomplishments and pull from them, oh, I did this, and you know what? It was scary, and the inner critic was there. The self-doubt was there when I did that, and it was wrong. It's been wrong. It has a horrible track record because it's always wrong. It's been wrong every time I accomplish something big. And I've even accomplished bigger things than what I'm trying to do now. And the inner critic was there too, and it was wrong. And it's sort of, the more you look at the bad track record of your inner critic, you're like, why are you even still here? You're never right, you know? So it diminishes it. And you can interrogate, you can have a little conversation with it and just say, well, what do you mean I'm not worthy of this? And use your past to argue against it and say, well, I did this, I did that. And it's like, you are reminding yourself of your great accomplishments to give yourself a boost, to diminish that critical voice that would have you think you're not worthy, etc. Some of the things that may be a little more persistent might take some more healing work. You might take the element of self-doubt, whether it's I'm not worthy, and you might have a list of things, and you can take each one, and hopefully you can write a positive affirmation that refutes it, and then just start replacing it. And eventually, over some time, after persistence, and I mean, when I say persistence, you might put Post-it notes around, you might put your background screen on your phone and put the positive affirmation in that background. Everywhere you look, say it every day, put it on the bathroom mirror, and it starts to seep in, and it can start to replace it. And there are lots of other things you can do. I do some guided meditations and longer workshops where we work on letting go of something and replacing it with that new affirmation. And if you want to get on my mailing list, then I'll screen share so that you can, next time I do a guided meditation, you might be able to join in. Oh, the host is disabled screen sharing. So I don't know, I'm not able to share my screen, but I'll put some information. Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Oh, I need to change my document. But yeah, I was just saying, there are times when I do these workshops and we do these guided meditations, and they end up being pretty effective. And I'm planning to also record those so that people can come to a website and use them. And actually, one of the other reasons why I want to record my guided meditations is because I don't get to use them, because I'm usually speaking them. Trisha, is it okay if we go over a few minutes if people want to stay? I have a few more notes and I want to leave room for a little more questions. Do you have time, Trisha?
Sure.
Okay. I don't have to be anywhere just yet. So yes, we can create a positive affirmation and use it in all kinds of ways. I mean, sometimes I even talk about people writing little positive notes to themselves and then hiding them in different places and finding them unexpectedly. And that can be really a nice little way of reminding yourself of who you really are outside of the inner critic. And I want to know, just right quick as I'm talking about this, does anybody have a question about or a comment about dealing with the self-doubt or the inner critic? You know, is there something I can clarify, or can you clarify something? Okay, I will continue then. So I did mention how you can use time traveling as a way to create your future. And like I did when I saw the email in the future, but there's some other things you can do. You can write a journal entry that is dated 6 months, 2 months, a year, 5 years in the future, and then write about your life in the present tense as though you are in the year 2025. It could be August 26, 2025, and you just write about your day. And it's a good idea to write about what's happening, but also to put the emotions in it, and then go back and reread it and step into the version of yourself that's in that journal and feel what it feels like. If there are things in your home, if your home life is different, if your environment is different, if you're dressing different, describe all of that and just think about all the ways your subconscious will receive and believe in that and conspire to make it happen. So see it, feel the emotion, and feel it when you go back into it and read it again later. You can also go farther into the future and see the like see the world you want to create as a memory. And that might be easier for some people. It sounds a little complicated, but it's like you go into the year 2025 and write about what happened in 2024 as though it's a past memory. So that might be something you might prefer one over the other, rather than talking about it in the present. It could be even more easy for your consciousness to accept, your subconscious. So another part, really quickly, another part of manifesting that's important is raising your vibration. Now, if I'm not going to assume everybody knows what that means, but think about how if a person gets really, I want to say that being sad and having negative emotions or being angry, those are completely healthy. We need to deal with those emotions. We want to deal with them, but not dwell on them. So I don't want to partake in any toxic positivity and tell people they need to be positive all the time. But I do want to note that lower vibrations can lower your immune system. You don't have so many endorphins flowing. But when you raise your vibration, that's the opposite of that. So getting into energies like you can ground yourself, you can go out in nature, you can dance, you can sing. All of those things raise your vibration and your frequency. And when you have a higher vibration, you become more magnetic. And what that means is you will manifest faster. And I always use this story, which involves Trisha, where it's a positive story. Of course, everything I talk about with you is positive. So one time I painted my living room and I was overzealous and I decided, oh, you know what? So what if it's 4 a.m? I'm going to paint the rest of this whole entire living room. And I ended up hurting my my right wrist so badly that it was just out of commission. I'm an energy healer, so I just said, oh, no problem. I'm just going to heal this sucker up right quick and it'll be fine in the morning. Well, it wasn't. So I had to deal with it. And I don't know, some stroke of genius came to me and I said, well, you know what? This is unfortunate. I do have a writing assignment today and my right hand's not working. I'm going to have to write everything with my left hand, but I'm going to be happy anyway. I made this decision to just be happy, and I started calling it radical happiness, and I practiced it for days, even though it wasn't the pain as much as it was that I couldn't use it. And as I found creative ways to like put a honey jar under my arm and open it and found creative ways to type with one hand, I smiled through it, and it really made a difference in my energy. I started just diving into joy for no reason, and I stayed home for a few days, but then I finally went out one day to Walgreens to buy one of those wrist braces. And on the way to Walgreens, everybody I saw was smiling at me. And I'm a friendly person and people typically do interact with me and engage, but it was over the top. I mean, every single person was smiling at me. I'm like, really, what's going on? And I realized that it was because of the radical happiness that I had been practicing. And a few days after that, I went to an art opening. And as soon as I saw Trisha, first thing you said, Trisha, was, oh, we need performers for Expo. And I said yes without knowing what it was you wanted me to do. I didn't care because guess what? I manifested that. Weeks earlier, I was thinking, I was re-emerging in the art world after a long break, and I wanted to do some new things like sculpture, but among those things, I wanted to try performing. And I'm like, well, how do I get into that? And I just knew I wanted to do it. I was excited about doing it. I didn't have a lot of self-doubt, but I didn't know how. And that's the thing with manifesting in the law of attraction. You don't have to worry about how. That is the universe's job, or whoever you want to believe in. That's somebody else's job. The how is not our job. So I didn't expect it to happen so quickly, but Trisha came up to me with the opportunity. And again, I said yes without even asking. And the very first time I got to try performing was at Expo Chicago with Murat Adash in the Bling Bling event. So Trisha, were you going to say something?
Yukio has a question.
Okay.
About the opposite of that, of your opposite of you smiling. What if you're afraid because you're afraid of disappointment?
Afraid of disappointment?
Yeah, which is a different, like you were positively smiling to accept things, but what if you are negative because you're afraid that it might not come?
Well, like I was saying earlier about like you might have that's like that self-doubt or that inner critic that's talking. And remember that list that I gave of the things that might happen? I want to say that I don't like to talk about people attracting negative things because the negative or the unpleasant and challenging things that we experience, they don't always have the purpose we think they have. For instance, I'm going to come back to that, circle back to the direct answer, but I just want to give an example of how a negative thing can be positive. But so say I decide I'm going to start this new endeavor, this new enterprise, and I set the goals and I start taking the first steps, and then all hell breaks loose. I start having really agitating people show up, but it wasn't like this until I made that decision. I did something positive. I feel good about it, but someone else could look in from the outside and say, oh, you must be thinking negative. You manifested that, you attracted that. I think it's not the job of the person looking in from the outside to know exactly why we attract what we attract, or why what happens. It might not be the law of attraction at work. There are other things at work. But the example I want to give here is this person might have the belief, they might be ready, they might feel ready, they might have taken the first steps, but these things start happening. Sometimes that will happen because the person still needs a little preparation and seasoning to be ready for that goal. So sometimes we'll get the most agitating people because the experiences that they bring us, the obstacles that they create, are a lesson. And when we learn that lesson, it's preparing us to, and it's shaping us into the badass we need to be to really succeed at the goal we set. So I set these goals, but there's some part of me that needs some shaping. So it's not a negative experience if someone comes along with obstacles, if challenges come up. People look at things very one-dimensionally. So I just want to put that out there, that not every experience that's challenging, difficult, hurtful, painful is a quote unquote bad, negative thing. Sometimes it is shaping us into the person who can do great things. So I want to point that out. But back to the direct answer. Earlier when I mentioned that, so say you're walking around with disappointment, but you do want this goal. Like I said, when there might be an opportunity sitting right next to you and you don't see it. Your consciousness does not have the wherewithal to even recognize the opportunity. So it can affect your perception, number one. Number two, you could be talking with someone about an opportunity, but they don't lend it to you. They don't give you the job. They don't ask you to participate because they can feel it in your energy that you have. They can feel something in your energy that says, oh, this person isn't the right person. But what's in your energy is all the self-doubt or the feeling like, oh, I don't think I can get this. So, and then there is, you might say yes to something, but then self-sabotage. So if you might get the opportunity, but then you show up late because there's a part of you who believes you don't deserve it. When we believe we don't deserve something, sometimes we will create the conditions whereby we don't have it. You don't think you deserve it, your subconscious will step in and say, well, let me do something about it. Let me make sure you lose it. And that's what self-sabotage looks like. Showing up late, starting fights with people, any number of things. But journaling can help us develop a self-awareness so that we can try to navigate our feelings in a way where we're either aware of what we're doing or we become aware after the fact and can change it. But Yukio, does that answer the question? I'm not. So I just wanted to know, Yukio, are you still here? Does that help at all? Okay, great.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, it
And
does.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you for answering that question, because it helped me clarify, because of a lot of people think that a bad thing happens, it means you attracted it and you were thinking negatively. No, you could be thinking positive, but something that seems negative might not be. And I want to share a little story that just shows that a lot of things aren't either good or bad. Things are neutral. And I was reading a book by an author named Denise Linn, who I really love. I've seen her, I've done all-day workshops with her a couple of times. And in her book, she talked about a Native American tribe, and the chief of the tribe, she's Native American too. So I don't know if this was a story that her family told her. I don't know where she got it. But basically, in this tribe, all of the horses ran away, and all the people in the tribe said, oh, that's really bad. All the horses ran away. And the chief goes, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Well, no, there was one horse that ran. I'm sorry, I'm telling the story wrong. One horse ran away. The people were like, oh, that's so terrible, that's so awful. And the chief goes, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Then that one horse came back and brought a bunch of horses with him. And everybody in the tribe said, "You were right, chief. It wasn't bad that the horse ran away because now we have 12 horses." And the chief goes, "It's not good, it's not bad, it just is." When the horses came back, the chief's son rode on the horse, fell off, and broke his leg. That seems bad, right? So everybody in the village goes, "Chief, once again, you're right. It wasn't good that all those horses came back. It was bad." And the chief goes, "It's not good, it's not bad, it just is." Then a war broke out between a neighboring nation, and the chief's son didn't have to fight in it, but everybody else's did. And everybody goes, "Wow, chief, once again, you're on point. It wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing because now your son doesn't have to fight." So that just goes to show that something that appears to be bad can be leading to something that is, so we can stay neutral about some of these things and just look for the hope in them. We can look for the lessons in them, and we can look for the growth opportunities in them. And that's just to say that things, I like that story because it just illustrates how it's our judgment sometimes that makes things one way or another. Sometimes a person might be late for an appointment and come to find out the bank was robbed. The bank where their appointment was robbed, and they avoid something. So they're frustrated about being late. And you know, when I'm frustrated about being late or something not going the way I want it to go, sometimes I stop and say, what else is going on here? There was this one day I was at a store that had 2 checkouts. I stood in line a long time at one of the checkout lines. When I got to the front, they ran out of paper and something was wrong. The machine was broken. And then I went and stood in the other line behind the people. And when I got to the front of that one, the cash machine, the cash register broke. And that has never happened. I've never been there when the machines broke, and both of them broke right when I got to the front. And I said, okay, this is too weird. I know something's going on here. Something more is happening here. And then I look up at the door, and my friend walked in, and she had been going through a very painful experience. She had a lot of loss in her life. And when I saw her, I knew, oh, this is why I'm still here. I get it. So I always ask, what else is going on? I try not to judge things at face value. And I learned a long time ago from watching The Twilight Zone as a 9-year-old kid, things are not always what they seem. So I want to say that. But again, back to raising your vibration, you become more magnetic to what you want to create. So the way I practice radical happiness, dancing, singing, looking at positive memories, and those are things, radical happiness, if you can do it. I really don't do it that often. It surprises me. It was so magical and effective, but I'm like, why don't I do that more often? And lately I have been feeling more joyful because I've started listening to some music that lifts me up. And I go long periods without listening to music. I've been doing that lately. But gratitude is another feeling that is very powerful. And if you do some gratitude journaling and just go through even the most mundane things that you might take for granted. When I do any gratitude meditating or journaling or a gratitude walk where I just, as all the while that I'm walking, I'm thinking of things like a rampage of things that I can be grateful for. I'm grateful for running hot and cold water, grateful that we have garbage pickup. I'm grateful for indoor plumbing. I mean, I'm grateful for the littlest things and the biggest things. And it stirs up your energy. You can almost feel your energy bubbling, like your molecules are moving faster or something. And all of that makes you more magnetic so that the things you want to create start coming at you faster. And I have a million more stories and I like to share them, but we don't have time for that. So I'm going to get to the last few points that I want to leave you with that are important for using the law of attraction, becoming more magnetic, and using and manifesting. Number one, like I said before, the how of it all is not our job. So we want to stay open to how things manifest. The second thing is we want to be careful about specific people. Like if I'm an artist, I might think about a specific person. I thought about Trisha as a specific person, but I didn't want anything from Trisha. I just knew I was supposed to know Trisha. I didn't know why. I didn't have a clue that all of this would happen back in 2005. But if you do want something specific, it's important to not focus on a specific person. Like because something better might come. You're putting limits up, and it's like putting friction or speed bumps on what you want to attract. It's like putting speed bumps up and for the universe. It's micromanaging. How do you feel when you're an expert and someone comes along who doesn't know jack about what you know and they start trying to micromanage you? We don't know jack about how the universe is doing all this, but believe me, the universe has many, many more resources to bring to us things in ways that we could never fathom or imagine. And the how is often going to surprise us, delight us. Once we see it, it's like, wow, I wanted this thing, but I had no idea that it would come to me in this magical way. So stay open to the magic. Don't block the magic. Also, be open to something better than what you're asking for. So that's why a lot of people, when they set an intention, they'll say, I intend to create, or I create this position or something better. And almost every time, I can think of so many times when I've desired something and it came to me in an upgraded form from what I was hoping for. So yes, I want to leave you with that note of staying open to the magic, and don't get caught up in worrying, because some people get too caught up in worrying about, oh my God, I thought something negative. I'm gonna manifest something negative. I don't think we want to do that, because I don't think the negative thinking manifests negative experiences very quickly. It takes a long time. And if I end up feeling like, oh my God, I just had a string of negative thoughts, I imagine I'm deleting them, but I also know that it's not like that you're gonna just, manifest before your eyes this horrible train wreck of an experience just because you had a negative thought. So some people get a little panicked, like, oh, I thought something negative, the end of the world, but it doesn't work like that. But when for some reason, the high vibration can manifest quickly, but the low don't. But we definitely want to work on the self-doubt, etc., because it'll help us move friction and obstacles out of the way, and it helps us prepare. And when you believe that you deserve something, when you know you're ready for it, don't you have a better experience with it? Doesn't it feel better? So there we have it. And I only went like 14 minutes over, but I do want to, for anyone who wants to stick around, I would like to try to answer any questions, or if you have comments that you want to share with the group. I just want to open up to anybody who wants to share or ask anything while I sip my tea. Well, it's so nice to see your names on the screen, and any faces that I've seen. Is so nice to see everybody. And Janet, haven't seen you in years. It's so nice to see you. Thank you all so much for being here. And if 6018 North does another online event, and if Trisha asks me, I always say yes to Trisha without even asking, well, what is it? I'm always like that with you, Trisha. So thank you for hosting this and allowing me to talk about the stuff I love talking about with people who I really love seeing.
Thank you, Rhonda. It's really good to see you.
You too. Thank you for coming, Janet.
I'm
so glad
sorry
you
I
could
was
make it.
late,
Thank
believe
you,
me.
Rhonda.
I think there's a replay if you want to see the other part. But thank you for coming out. Coming
Trisha,
out like you had to go
is it-
somewhere.
Well, I mean, I do, I have a tour. I was talking with some people that I just gave a tour to, so that was making me late. But if you have those notes and you can send them out, would you be able to do that?
We put it, we send in an email to everyone who signed up the notes as well as the recording.
Oh, I didn't know that
great,
the notes.
great.
I didn't know you did that. That's nice,
She was
Trisha.
doing it in the chat, and I was taking notes, but I really love the idea of a vision book. And I do this work too, but it's really nice to hear it when someone else's experience informs it.
Janet, you have a morning gratitude, don't you?
I write 5 things every morning that I'm grateful for, just barely before I will get on the computer or listen to the news or anything. And I do meditate usually to a tape for 10 minutes, but I would be really interested in your meditations. I have a few online. I can share them to the online. I just either like breathing or ones that visualize, because my brain is so like I like visualization because it gives me a direction. Yeah, I mean, and I would just say I am pretty happy even during this miserable time of life in America, but I am optimistic, so it must work.
That helps. Thank you.
There's really no reason to be, but yeah, anyhow, thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Rhonda.
you for
It's really
sharing
good
that.
to see you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trisha.
Thank you. Does anyone
Thank
else have
you.
any lasting question or last minute questions?
Thank you. This really helped.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate it.
Diane.
Thank you. That's
Thanks,
the purpose.
Yukio. It's so good to see you, Yukio.
Thank
And
you.
Barbara. Nice to see
Bye.
you.
Bye. Good to
Bye,
see you.
Bye,
everybody.
Rhonda.
Bye, Rosalind. Bye, Gina.
Bye, Rhonda.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
Rosalind. Bye.
Trisha, let's catch up sometime.
Yes.
Or Rhonda, Trisha, like we'll do some sort of COVID safe lunch.
Yes.
Whatever.
That would be great.
Whatever that looks like.